UK police arrested former Prince Andrew. He is now known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's accused of linking sensitive UK trade documents to Jeffrey Epstein. Note, he is not being criminally accused of sex crimes. The king's brother left the police station looking shaken and pale. It's quite a look on his face there. And he should be worried. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life behind bars. Authorities couldn't nail him for the sex scandal, so they pulled an Al Capone, busted him on the paperwork. Virginia Giuffre accused Epstein of trafficking her to then Prince Andrew and says Prince Andrew sexually assaulted and abused her. By all accounts, Prince Andrew is a despicable human being. Spending the rest of his life in jail seems pretty just if he did anything close to what he's accused of. But seeing the man and then finding the crime is what Stalin did. And now we're getting closer to that here in America. We've been telling you all along. There is not a there in the Epstein files. There is no evidence to convince other people of sex crimes. The evidence or lack thereof doesn't seem to matter to many. Democratic Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury of New Mexico says if a prince can be held accountable, so can a president. And she is with us now. Madam Congresswoman, thank you for being with us. What crime do you want Donald Trump charged with?
Well, first of all, let me address the statement that you just made. There is 20 years of evidence in the Department of Justice files of crimes committed against multiple victims by multiple perpetrators. There is a half dozen named co-conspirators that were never indicted or convicted of crimes. And just because they were not convicted, no, hold on. Just because they were not convicted does not mean they did not commit crimes. So your statement is actually false.
Okay, hold on. First of all, you try to correct me, I'm going to correct you. They weren't indicted. There was multiple DOJs that decided not to indict or even bring a grand jury against them. Those DOJs were both Republican and Democrat. So you're telling me that there are multiple people who there is evidence to indict, which means the prosecutor must believe they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and somehow these people are so important and so powerful that both Republican and Democrat DOJs decided not to.
Yes. In fact, if you read the files, it's very clear that dating back to 2006 and 7, when the
Department... So then why didn't Pam Bondi do it?
Let me finish here. In 2006 and 7, there was an indictment memo drafted that had dozens of recommended indictments against Jeffrey Epstein, and Alex Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney at the time, chose to kill the case against the line attorney at the time.
Against Jeffrey Epstein. You're completely conflating things. Ma'am, you can't come on here and just say wild stuff. Let me ask you a very simple question that I asked at the top, rather than going back to 2000 and 2008. You said if a prince can be held accountable, so can a president. I'll ask you the question again. You said that right after Prince Andrew was arrested and charged with a crime. That's what accountability means to you. What crime should Donald Trump be charged with?
Well, Donald Trump was investigated by the FBI for abuse of a minor, and there are multiple statements from witnesses that the FBI took as tips and they investigated as allegations. Those, as far as we know, were never taken fully to the fullest extent of their investigation.
Hold on. First of all,
we need to be asking important questions about
but you
what
know, ma'am, that's not what you said, though. That's not what you said. You said he should be held accountable in the way he should be arrested. No, ma'am.
I didn't come on your program
I came on to get answers, and you're not answering the question.
You're not answering the question. To present the facts to the American public, which is the files are there. There are 3 million files available for the public to view themselves. I don't have to argue with you on the air. Just go read the files, my friend.
Right, and the files do not show evidence beyond a reasonable doubt to indict anybody. You're telling me that Merrick Garland and the Biden DOJ that made up crimes to charge Donald Trump with had files that show he should be indicted as a pedophile and they didn't do it? Come on.
I did not make that statement. What I have
That's what you're saying.
I know. What I have stated is that the FBI investigated credible tips against the President of the United States. And if you have not viewed those documents yourself, I encourage you to do so.
Okay. And obviously, multiple DOJs, including Democratic DOJs, decided that there was not evidence to indict him. You have said in your tweet...
Can I ask you, have you read the tip sheets yourself? Because I've read them, and I read the unredacted version.
I have read many of them. So
did you read the FBI files and the tip sheets in which multiple witnesses provided evidence.
You're
to the
not
FBI.
allowed to come on here and slander people. The question is,
I'm not slandering anyone. I'm reporting what is in the Epstein files.
okay, you haven't gotten back to the question at hand, which was, what should Donald Trump be charged with? And I don't think you're willing to say anything, because you realize if you say something like that, you can be sued for libel and slander, and you're not willing to say it.
Sir, I'm not a law enforcement agent. I am a member of the Oversight Committee, which is conducting oversight over the largest cover-up in American history and the miscarriage of justice.
So should Merrick Garland be indicted?
Justice's prosecution of these crimes, and I'm reporting to you and to the American public what the FBI and DOJ files say.
So obviously what the files also say is that the FBI found those tips to be not credible.
No.
Otherwise, their indictment would have been brought.
No, we have not
That's
seen
how it works.
Evidence, sir.
Okay, so let me ask you. Hold on. Let me ask you a question. Okay,
that has been made available, and if the administration was fully compliant with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which they have not, then possibly there might be additional evidence. But there is not currently evidence that there was.
There is no evidence for an indictment, so we can agree on that.
No,
last question for you. Last question for you.
That's not factual.
Last question for you.
Let me completely unfactual.
Except there's been no facts to prove contrary. But let me just ask you a quick question.
You can just go read the files.
Let me ask you a quick question. I know that. I've done that. I've done that.
Millions of Americans can go do that yourself.
And no one has presented evidence that Donald Trump should be indicted. Let me just ask you a quick question.
All you got to do is use your own eyes.
Let me just ask you one more question.
All you have to do is read them.
I know. Thank you. Here's the last question for you. Should Bill Clinton, you're so concerned with Donald Trump, should Bill Clinton be, quote unquote, held accountable too? Should he be charged with a crime?
I don't know if he should be charged, but can you let me finish my sentence? If there is credible evidence, which there may be because he is also listed in the FBI files, then he should be held accountable.
You don't seem very concerned about it. It's shocking.
Every individual. I know this doesn't fit with your script, sir, but I'm answering.
I don't have a script, actually. I'm just talking to you.
I genuinely believe that anybody who has committed an act of sexual violence against any person should be held accountable.
100% agree with you there, if there's evidence of sexual violence.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.